One of the most essential sustainable development goals concerns the purpose to end hunger and to achieve global food security. Although the fight against hunger has been already addressed by the previous Millennium Development Agenda, today the number of people who starve is increasing. About the underlying reasons and prospects for the future, we would like to talk with Gülay, professor at the Institute for Political Science at Freie Universität Berlin. Professor Schaller, what are the global problems associated to food security, and why do more than 800 million people suffer today from hunger?
Well, there are many problems of food security or food insecurity. So let me briefly define what food security is. The definition has changed over time, acknowledging the different factors that might lead to food insecurity. So the FAO defines food security in terms of availability, access, utilization, and stability. So availability refers to the problem of producing food, producing enough amounts of food for everybody. The second dimension, access to food, acknowledges the problem that people don't have enough purchasing power to buy food. Or it refers to problems, to social inequalities, which brings the problem of distribution and redistribution of food. And then there is the third dimension, which is the utilization of food. And this particularly refers to problems of food safety and the quality of food. And this is actually a very important aspect because it also points to the problem that food is not just a matter of availability and access, but also a matter of malnutrition. You know, that people are not, that they don't have access to good food of good quality with all the micronutrients, etc. The last dimension, stability, acknowledges the problem of economy and weather-driven shocks, which is why food is not then enough available. Yeah. And this is actually the last, so to come back to your question, this last point is something that is put forward by the FAO, by international organizations. So when it comes to global problems, which was your question, they refer to problems with climate changes, so droughts or floods. They refer to problems of violent conflicts, which very negatively affects, of course, the availability and access to food. And they refer to economic shocks, right, such as the price hikes, the food price hikes in 2008, 2009, or the economic and financial crisis, which led to a decrease in the purchasing power of people. So these are factors which are external to the food production system. Right? But the FAO does not refer to problems internal to the food production system, which means they still think that increasing food production will solve the problems of hunger. But it's not just a matter of simply increasing the amounts of food production. And there are alarming calls to increase food production. The high-level expert forum of the Food and Agriculture Organization of FAO, for instance, estimates that we need 70% more of food production in order to overcome hunger by 2050. Which is really alarming. But what does that mean? What does that entail? We all know there is enough evidence which shows that food production, intensive agriculture actually, has also many negative effects on food security, right? So we might have a higher availability, but it does not solve environmental problems. Intensive agriculture has very negative effects on the environment and on the health of the farmers, because of pesticide, because of agrochemicals in general, and hybrid seeds. You know, they are very much dependent on hybrid seeds, on using hybrid seeds, for instance. So it's the environmental effects, economic effects, because they need to buy the same seeds in order to be able to produce the same amounts. And thirdly, the social effects, because we still have social inequalities which negatively affect the access to food. But not just the access, but also food production. There are social inequalities in terms of access to and control over natural resources like land and other things, seeds, etc., or to material economic resources such as credits, etc. So, and all these factors negatively affect food security. It's not just the external factors.
I would like to dig in a little bit deeper in one of these dimensions, the last dimension, the social dimension, you call it the social inequality dimension. Let's talk about the role of women and the question of gender. The United Nations highlight the particular role of women within the food security context. In fact, they state, while often being the most affected, women hold the key to build a world free from hunger and poverty. And how far does hunger affect in particular women, and why is it so that women are holding the key for a possible solution?
Let me answer your last question first. So why are women seen as a key to end hunger? It's particularly because of the gender division of labor. It's mostly women who are responsible for social reproductive work at household level. They are the ones who cook, they are the ones who prepare the meals. And in many countries of this world, they are also the ones who are responsible for subsistence agriculture, for instance, in sub-Saharan Africa. And so that is why international organizations refer to women as the key to end poverty. So what they want to do is to empower women in order to enable them to produce more for household use, and also they want to enable them to sell the overproduction on the market, that they can earn some money, which again helps them to buy food or to support the household. Plus, they want to empower women to prepare nutritious food for their children. This is also a very important aspect, because we talk about hunger, but there is also the aspect of hidden hunger, because mostly the production side focuses on staple food crops, right? But not a variety of other food crops, which are also very important in order to overcome malnutrition. And nobody really talks about malnutrition and this hidden hunger. Kimura, a very well-known scientist, called this hidden hunger, the hunger that we do not see. Right. So women have this double responsibility to overcome hunger, to produce more and to be able to feed the household, but also to overcome hidden hunger, that they also look after nutritious food and healthy food for their children and families. So that is why women are seen as the key to overcome hunger. But what is overseen here, and this leads now to your second question, or the first question, is women. But there are gendered power relations. For instance. There are many publications by the FAO on how to link women to markets, etc. How can they sell their produce on the market, and how can they act as economic subjects on the market? But what is not seen is that they don't have the price-setting power, right? They are not able to sell their produce for better prices. The male counterparts are always more successful in selling the food for higher prices. Right? For instance. The other thing is that women do not have the land rights, so they don't have access to land and to the natural resources to produce more on their own account. So they are mostly dependent on the goodwill of their husbands in most of the cases to get access to land. They have using rights, but not the land rights, in the sense that they can also make the decisions on what to produce, how to produce, and what to do with the produce, right? And thirdly, the gender power relations at household level are also important, because women are the ones they are the ones in the family who eat in the last instance. So they first feed their families and then eat themselves. So, which is why international organizations say, well, women are mostly affected by hunger, because They first feed their families and then eat. If there is something left, they get something to eat, or they eat smaller proportions, and or they eat differently because as I mentioned before, we don't just have hunger, but we have malnutrition. So obesity is also a big problem. So they eat in a way that they maybe have no hunger but have hidden hunger. You know, that micronutrients are not available.
Professor, let's talk about possible initiatives for the future which could help to achieve global food security. Are there promising approaches to end hunger from your point of view?
Well, actually, you know, I actually reject to talk about food security because, as I said, food security is a definition. It has been defined by FAO and by international organizations in terms of availability, mostly availability, access, utilization and stability, which is okay, but it does not, as I said, it's still within the productivist frame, right? And this productivist idea of food security is still intact. Instead, I would prefer to talk about food sovereignty, a concept which has been introduced by the peasants' movement La Via Campesina in 1996, and this concept actually points to these problems of inequalities. You know, that there are inequalities at the local level, but also at international level, that it is not that there is an uneven playing field when it comes to food trade or agricultural trade, but they point also to problems of land access, land rights, and land reforms, which are highly unequal. And so they rather argue for self-sufficiency, not only on the national level, but also on the local level. And what they want to stress is our production systems which more focus on agroecology, not on agrochemicals, but on agroecological solutions, on integrated pest management, for instance. And another dimension which is very important is biodiversity. So they take account of, so La Via Campesina, the whole movement, and the concept of food sovereignty takes account of improving biodiversity by protecting local food habits instead of just using imports and eating staple food crops.
Okay. Well, finally, we ask you for a brief look into the future. Do you think that the SDG to end hunger and to achieve food security will be accomplished in 2030?
As long as we think that it's just a matter of quantity, there might be, you know, a possibility to think of ending it by that date. But I don't think so, because it's a matter of social inequalities and environmental issues. We need to change social relations, and that needs time, right? So FAO thinks that we can accomplish food security because it just thinks in quantitative terms, right? We just need to produce 70% more in order to be able to end hunger. But we were not able to do so, right? I mean, we increased the production. We have enough food. That's not the problem. There is plenty of food, but it's not distributed in an equal manner. We don't have the means to produce it in an equal way, right? Land rights, etc. And we still have deep social inequalities, which are actually, in my opinion, the main factor for hunger.
Professor Caglar, thank you very much.
You're welcome.